specific genotype, right? I think that's a simple thing to say. It's not comparative really to like, self-defense, situations.
Well, I want to get Amdir's thoughts on whatever he heard. I don't know how much he heard.
Well, I haven't been around for like the whole conversation. Right, let me turn my camera on. I kind of only got in like when Danny got up here, but there we go.
Okay, well, I'm no fan of the name the trait argument. I was just trying to parody kind of what, I was just trying to kind of parody the argument, I suppose, because there are certain animals that vegans are fine with unaliving and not others, and so I was doing the whole name the trait thing to show that these are not easy questions, and a lot of people don't have cutoffs. I don't think they even need to have an articulated cutoff. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I do think, there's a question, do you need a cutoff and do you need an articulated cutoff? Those are two different questions. I think it's true that you need a cutoff. It's not true you need an articulated cutoff. You can have a cutoff and not articulate it, maybe not even be aware of what the cutoff is. That's fine. So, but the point of name the trait is to self-reflect on like what the cutoff is. There's kind of two things you said I want to address. One is you mentioned that you're a particularist. I also consider myself a particularist. I don't think name the trait commits you to moral principles. I'm not sure if we disagree about that.
No, I don't think it does, but I think Mike is not a particularist. So
okay. Second of all, depending on what you mean by reductio, I think it's like clear that you can be agnostic on something and have reductios. Like if I asked, do you think that it would be right or wrong to unalive a human that just had cow hair, and you said I'm agnostic on that, I think that would be a reductio.
Yeah, that's fine. I think part of I don't know how much you watch with Mike, but a lot of when these questions were asked of Parker, he just said he didn't know. He didn't have a cutoff, and then he had to think about it. So I think for those people that are thinking about it, they should think about they can think about a cutoff. But I mean, I think we should leave them to thinking about it.
I think that if you kind of ask the name the trait question and someone's agnostic to it, you can the conversation doesn't have to end there. You can start kind of just going through the trait equalization process, and at first more broad. If there's a human that has cow rationality, there's a human that has cow hooves, there's a human that is different, their species is shifted from a different human, and see whether they're agnostic on each of these different cases. Then when you find out what they are and aren't agnostic on, you can start to get more granular, and you can kind of like together go through this kind of self-reflection and find out.
So like, how would you answer the reverse name the trait thing? So I'm certain that you're comfortable with killing cockroaches and other pest-like things, right? Like what
I'm not convinced like cockroaches are sentient, so that's going to be the trait that I would name.
Okay, so if it were sentient, you wouldn't kill it.
Yeah.
Okay. If an ant was sentient, you wouldn't kill it.
If they were like there might be some non-trivial amount of sentience I care about. I might say something like, if an ant is non-trivially sentient, then think you should avoid killing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because they're different, I guess, spectrum. There's a spectrum of sentience, I would say. Really, for me, it's by sentience. What does that mean exactly? Is that just that it can have conscious states, mental states?
Some sort of first-person experience or subjective experience, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because what matters to me is more about like the sort of intentional states it has. I'm sure that like, would you say you're less sentient if you can't see color, or no?
Are you less sentient I don't think you have less of a first-person experience if you can't see color.
Okay, I mean, so really for you it's black or white, right? Whether either something is sentient or not. It's not a spectrum.
Well, there might be some spectrum, and maybe somebody is like less sentient if they can't see color, but it would be like a really minuscule amount. I think it would be something that's like really unimportant.
Because if scientists told me that ants are sentient, I'm not so sure if I would care. But
what if they told you that they were as sentient as a human? What if scientists told you?
Yeah, then I would care. I would care. It would be like, I would care a lot, right?
Yeah, like they told you, actually ants, they have the experiences that you have. They actually, they hold funerals for their grandmas when they die, all this
But that's
stuff.
the point, is that if it, let's say, I mean, I'm not convinced, I'd have to think about it, but let's say sentience is on a spectrum. Oh, whoops. Let's say sentience is on a spectrum. I mean, are you going to know when the cutoff is? I mean, so some kind of Sorites paradox, that.
I don't think that you need to know where the cutoff is to think that it's like weird to say that if you have some human that's just the intelligence level of a pig or something, that you would find that wrong. You don't need to know where the cutoff is to think something like that.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood you earlier about, needing to know a cutoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't say that you need to know a cutoff.
Oh, okay. What? I thought maybe I misheard.
I said there needs to be a cutoff. If it's not true that there's a trait true of the animal that, if true of the human, would justify unaliving it for cheeseburgers. If there is no such trait, then and you do think that it's morally permissible to slaughter it's morally impermissible to unalive the human for cheeseburgers, then you would have a contradiction on your hand. But I didn't say you need to know the trait or you need to know the cutoff.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I interpreted you, because Parker was saying, I don't know the cutoff, right? I don't have one, right? Like, I mean, that's what, by have one, he means like, there's not that, like.
No, there's no articulated one. That's what I was trying to say.
Well, but there's one thing to know it and there's one thing to articulate it. Those are two distinct things. So it seems like there's three things here. There being a cutoff, something that explains why you suddenly there's a difference in value, and then there's knowing about it and there's articulating it.
I'm saying there needs to be a cutoff. You don't need to know it or articulate it.
You don't need to know it. Okay, that's what I want, right? To focus is that you don't need to know the cutoff. I think.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think, like, even if you don't know the cutoff, it doesn't mean that the sort of name the trait game that just ends and we like pack it up and go home or something. Well, like, there's still somewhere the conversation can go.
Well, after 3 hours, maybe you want, but like, I don't know how long they've been talking, but yeah, no, I agree. I mean, more or less, I agree that, you could always talk more after, someone says, I don't know what the cutoff is exactly, but the point is that you shouldn't demon. Oh, you don't know the cutoff? You don't know the cutoff? Like, I mean, that's
actually not what I was doing, right? Look, having no cutoff, what I'm saying is, I agree that Parker can say he has a cutoff and we can end there on that topic. But the problem is, I was trying to show him the reductio in his view. He was not willing to actually answer the question exactly where it was, right? I was going to go into, is it this particular trait or not? And it seems like he didn't want to answer. He just said, I don't know. And, and that
this has been recorded, Mike. Like, I can't believe you can sit here and say that after it's been recorded.
Oh, okay, great. So, like, what's the trait that, makes a non-human a human that would justify harming a non-human?
Are you asking for the cutoff?
Yeah.
He just did it. You literally just asked for what the cutoff is. Yeah, so remember, we said that there's not an articulated cutoff.
Like, what's the physical trait? Like,
that doesn't mean somebody can't ask for it. Then you would just say, well,
I would just say we don't have an articulated physical trait. Like,
and then we say, well, okay, let's say that we have a human and they just have pig hooves and they just have pig hair. Are you agnostic on this case, whether it would be okay to unalive them and turn them into?
No, because they would still be human.
Well, that's fine.
Because his aesthetic points was something completely different. That didn't even relate to being human.
No, this is just like step one. The point is that we have a human on one side, we have a pig on one side. We start taking things that are true about the pig. Okay, it's true it has hooves. It's true it has some level of intelligence. It's true it has however many stomachs a pig has. We start making these things true of the human. We can just kind of ask you as we go along this process at different steps of the process, we can just ask you the question, are you agnostic about this case? Are you agnostic about this case? And we might get more information about the sort of where the gray area is and what the areas are that you're more sure about. And maybe there's something weird on your view that comes out of doing that.
Danny, you're muted, by the way. Mine was like, Danny, you're muted, man.
I was muted. I was muted. I think Parker said something like, well, look, it's going to be the trait that makes the difference between whether it stays human or not. That's what Parker.
We're asking the particular trait, like we're asking a particular physical feature.
But he doesn't have an answer as to what that trait is. And I don't really think that, I mean, is that a problem in one sense, but it's not like something that like I would give anyone shit over. because I don't know the answer to that question.
So you would think, Danny, that it might be okay for someone to say, yeah, because this person has hooves, we get to slaughter them for food and put them together?
No. I think the point is that what Parker said, I remember in the conversation, is that you could do the trait equalization, but there's going to be a point where the second that you transfer this particular trait, or maybe even a set, it's no longer human anymore.
Okay, great. So if there was a non-human who looked just like me, but he had hooves and was green-skinned, you would think that would be okay to slaughter that person, that being?
No, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not clear. He's saying that when you do this trait equalization thing, there's going to be a point where you transfer so many traits that it's no longer human. We're just a pig again. It's just a pig.
Yeah, we're asking for that cutoff, right? We're asking for that cutoff.
I don't even know the answer to that.
My point is that if someone is agnostic on the cutoff, then what you can do is you can go to sort of ranges. So you can just go like, well, right here, are you agnostic to it right here? How about further down the line right here? Are you agnostic about it here? How about further down the line? Are you agnostic about it here? That's the sort of exercise I'm interested in.
Yeah, but there's going to be, okay, so, but as soon as Parker recognizes the human turns into a pig, then he's going to, so whatever that cutoff is, we could do that test, right? Like, but that's going to be,
that's the part I'm interested in.
Okay. So, but
which is exactly what I told Mike he should have done, and he didn't do it repeatedly.
But then it just becomes a question. Okay, when is it? What makes a pig, right?
Well, that's just. I think that's like a semantic point. I don't think that's too relevant.
That's
literally what I was telling him it was, because it just comes down to a descriptive difference of when you see it to be a human versus a non-human.
I can reword it. At what point do you perceive it as a pig?
At what point? Well, I don't know what you mean by perceive it. Like, do you just mean that you look at it and you think that it's a pig? Clearly you don't mean that, because you can imagine a scenario where you have like a Freaky Friday situation with a pig and a human, and you would look at it and you would think it's a pig. Like, there's something else meant by perceive there.
But let's use the word perceive as a success term, right? Like, let's contrast perceive versus misperceive, right? So yeah, in the Freaky Friday situation, if Parker knew that it was a human trapped inside of a pig, he'd count that as a misperception, and to some extent.
Well, that's gonna depend how the person's like using the term pig. So then there's a question like, what are the application conditions of the term pig? But I think that's just what we're asking about. So,
but that's like that's like, I don't even know if there's a good answer. I mean, do you have a good answer to that?
Well, like what a pig is? I don't think I have a good answer for that, but I don't think that I would name pig as my answer to this question.
Yeah, and then that's the point. That's the entire point here, right?
Like if you do name that, then I think you don't need to tell me what are the application conditions. Well, like if you don't know what the application conditions are of the term you're using, then I think in certain contexts, I know the application conditions. I don't think that there's like application conditions independent of the context. That's one thing. So right now I might be able to look at a pig, say that's a pig, and tell you what it means for me to be saying that successfully. But
Parker can definitely identify what traits would make it sufficiently a pig. But if the cutoff, I mean, the point is that where is the point where you have? Like,
we're not even saying pig. We're saying like non-human. Right, like that's a way easier thing to do. And we're giving.
But the point is, for pig to be applied successfully is just going to end up being that like some other predicates applied to this thing, right?
You have to go over that for me.
So like for the term pig to be applied successfully, that just means that there's some other predicates that applied to it. So maybe by pig you mean pink thing with. Not very intelligent with the tail that swirls, and if those predicates apply to it, then pig applies to it, because pig is just pig has application conditions. Those are just other predicates. So when we're asking like when we're going through this process, like we don't need to use the term pig. We can kind of just look for those other predicates, right?
Well, look, why don't you play the game? Play the game with him and see what he says, right? I mean,
yeah. So the way that I would start is like it's a human. So it's like a human. Looks like a human, except it just has hooves and a hair. Is this a pig? Or sorry, not is this a pig, but is it permissible to unalive it?
I appreciate the hand hearts. Thank you so much. I never said it was even permissible to unalive like a cow or a pig or anything. I said I was agnostic on that.
What was like the name the trait thing that you were setting up, Mike? What was the scenario?
He was just kind of asking me why I have difference in values.
No, so he said it's conjunction of rationality and being human. So I said, okay, no matter if there's a mentally disabled person who has no rationality, you would still harm them. He said, yeah. So then it's not rationality, that's just fluff. It comes down to species, right? So then
this is not what I said at all, by the way.
What is the distinction between a human species and a non-human species? And he said aesthetic value. Okay, so then I asked him, what was the aesthetic value, that trait that justified harming that non-human?
I'm asking like, what are the two, what is the scenario? Because usually name the trait is something like, what's true of the animal that if true of the human would justify unaliving it for cheeseburgers.
He said aesthetic value. And then I said, okay, great.
That's not what I said, no.
Parker's saying that he doesn't think that it's permissible to unalive the cow or pig for cheeseburgers. So then are you setting up name the trait, like what's true of the human, or what's true of the animal that if true of the human would make you agnostic on whether the human?
Yeah, and Parker said,
you're setting it up? Okay.
Parker said aesthetic value. He said that.
He wasn't saying the accent.
I'm just trying to get
the relevant here. Let me clarify this, Amdir, because Mike is just like, his active listening skills are negative. Right. I was saying, for the context of humans versus non-humans, right, that humans, right, they're sentient and they're a part of a species in which meets a particular threshold of rationality.
Right.
That was the view.
Then I asked you, if there is a mentally challenged person who had the same rationality of a cow, would you
but they're sentient and they're of a species in which has a particular threshold of rationality.
So it's species. All animals are sentient.
I thought that we were agnostic on the trait. I'm getting a little bit confused.
No. I'm agnostic on whether or not it's like morally permissible to kill animals, right? What I'm not agnostic on is the trait that defines the difference between whether or not humans are more valuable than animals. I know that humans are more valuable than animals under my view, and this is the reason I give. Does that make sense?
But vegans aren't saying humans are not like more valuable than animals.
I know. I've clarified that to Mike plenty of times. I don't even know why he's asking me at this point.
He said
I've literally clarified this since the beginning of the convo.
Yeah, so Parker said aesthetic value was the distinguishing trait between humans and non-humans that would justify harming them.
No, it's not, dude.
Yes, you actually. That's what you said, though.
No, it's not.
Okay, great. Let's do it again then.
Wait, can I just? So it seems like a better way to do this might be. Parker's agnostic on whether or not it would be okay to unalive a pig or a cow for a cheeseburger, but are you agnostic on whether or not it would be okay to unalive a human for a cheeseburger?
No, I'm not agnostic on that. And the relevant difference is that, again, the points I brought up. Did you remember my point? I can bring it up again.
Yeah, so you said it was a conjunction of sentience and being part of a species that meets some threshold of rationality. So I think, so just to reiterate for the audience, like the question there would be, what's true of the animal that if true of the human would cause you to be agnostic to whether or not the human, it would be morally right or morally permissible to unalive the human for a cheeseburger? I don't think sentience is, that just seems like something the cow and the human both have. That seems like a category error is like an answer. So the relevant part there would be just being part of a species that meets some threshold of rationality.
How is it a category error if it's a conjunction?
Well, I guess one part of the conjunction would just be trivial there. I mean, the point is that the
no, because it's if both of them are true, this and this, then it would be true. It's not this or this.
Yeah, I realize that. But the point is that when we're asking for something that's different between the cow and the human. So naming something that is in common between the cow and the human.
One meets these qualifications of having these two at the same time.
Gotcha.
The other one does not meet this.
Gotcha. But the sentience thing isn't really doing anything. Like you can remove it.
It is because it's in conjunction.
No, it's not. It's not doing anything.
Okay, well,
yes, it is.
This is not important to get hung up on, anyways. So what is when you say being part of a species that has this threshold of rationality? Do you mean that they're part of a species where 51% or more of the members have this threshold of rationality, or what do you mean by that?
That would be majority. There would be some like arbitrary threshold that we'd probably outline, and that would all be applicable to different cases where I would have like intuitions about like this or whatnot, right? About like, oh, this species, whether or not it has it. right? There's not like a specific case where I'd be like, oh, it has like 17% of the species is rational, right? And then I'd be able to like, we wouldn't really have examples in real life to say this, right?
So okay, so hold on. So you just mean that there's some, I thought you meant a threshold of rationality. You mean a threshold of members of the species which are rational.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that, you're not sure where that threshold is. That's fine. But it's somewhere, greater than animals where it's presumably 0, and then like less than humans where it's probably quite high, like 95 or something, right?
I mean, it would definitely be lower than 95. I mean, I can conceive of circumstances where 50% is like rational. I'd still care about that, right? Like,
okay.
But like, so we would have no like real world examples to apply that to or anything. So it's just all like hypothetical.
That's fine. So then, well, just to be clear, one last thing for clarity here is, what do you mean by rational exactly?
Like ability to reason or something like that. Like I would just use some typical definition,
like
or
maybe like
say higher
ability to make inferences.
Yeah, sure. You can
language,
say that.
all those sorts of things, or maybe some threshold of having those. Yeah,
just how we typically define the term rational. Or
so then, so then you said you don't think it's like 100% of humans that have this. It's something more like 90, 95, maybe even less. So if you were to take one of these humans that don't have this ability, maybe somebody who's severely mentally handicapped or something, and you were to find out that they were not part of the human species, that actually their genetic makeup was just different enough to qualify as a different species, would you be agnostic as to whether or not it's permissible to unalive them for a cheeseburger?
Well, I would ask, is that species going to be like, first of all, were they firstly human, but they were, are you saying they're never human? I mean,
they're never human.
So they were never human, right? And it is the case that they're not part of a species in which is majority rational.
Right. Well, it's not that it's 0% rational, actually. The species they're in is 0% rational.
The species is 0% rational, right? But they just like look human.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where Mike found the aesthetic difference. So I would say that like, because they look typically human, I might value them more. But this is not the difference that I qualify for all humans.
Yes, it is.
Just like they look human, right? I might grant them more value than if they didn't look human. Does that make sense?
That's fine. But the question was, would you be agnostic to whether or not, would you be agnostic as to whether or not you could unalive them for a cheeseburger? Or would you positively say you can't?
Oh, I would positively say no, you can't, because I think that the aesthetic preferences of them being like typically looking human, right, would grant them enough value for me to care about it.
Okay, but then when you named that as your trait, you would have contradicted yourself.
Where's the contradiction?
Yeah, the contradiction is that what's true of the animal, that if it were true of the human, would make you agnostic to whether or not it's permissible to unalive that.
Can't use a separate standard though?
For a cheeseburger, is and is not having this threshold of, or belonging to a species that has some threshold of rationality. So it's both is and is not that trait. That's the contradiction.
No, because I'm applying a separate standard, right? It's like a completely different question. I'm not applying the original standard of the conjunction. I'm applying a second standard of, I also care about these aesthetic preferences. So the aesthetic preferences, I didn't even have to bring up in the first part of the conversation because we were just qualifying the difference between a human versus non-human, where these particular traits would be existent. Whereas like I could care about the aesthetic preferences of a particular human to a greater degree, and I wouldn't have to be agnostic on that. And it's, again, a different standard.
Right, but the question
was...
How's
that a contradiction if it's a different standard?
The question was, what if true, so if it were true of the human, would cause you to be agnostic to whether or not it would be permissible to unalive it for a cheeseburger. So the thing that you named there was this threshold belonging to a species with threshold of rationality. That was what was, if true of a human, would cause you to be agnostic. So what I did is I made that true of the human.
Wait. No, that's not what I was trying to say. If true, it would grant a human more value. That's all I said.
Yeah, but that wasn't the question that you answered.
I wasn't saying if true, it would deny the value of the animal. Right? I was saying if true, it grants a greater level of value for human.
Wait, do you really? Okay, what question? When you named that trait, what question do you think you were answering?
When I named I was giving an answer to the question of what makes humans more valuable than non-humans.
I phrased the question like very carefully because I said, Parker, you're agnostic to whether or not it's permissible to unalive a cow for a cheeseburger. You said, yeah, I'm agnostic towards that. I said, are you agnostic to whether or not it's permissible to unalive a human for a cheeseburger? You said, no, I'm not agnostic. I think it is impermissible to unalive a human for a cheeseburger.
Maybe what I'm saying is that this isn't the only trait that, if true, would grant higher value.
Okay, so then I just want to make sure.
Like I can grant a separate standard. I don't see how this is a contradiction.
Wait,
I'm just granting higher value for humans.
I'm trying to explain. It's fine if you. So I just want to make sure that you understand. Like before I move forward with your answer to this question, that you actually understand like the question that I asked, because the question I asked is, since you're agnostic towards the animal case, you're not agnostic toward the human case. So I wasn't asked, this is what I was not asking. I was not asking what's true of the animal that, if true of the human, would make you not value the human more. That's not what I was asking you. What I was asking you is, what is true of the animal that, if true of the human, would make you agnostic to whether or not the human, it's permissible to unalive the human for a cheeseburger, the same way you're agnostic in the animal case. That was the question.
So what trait, if true, would make it that I'm agnostic against animals? Maybe I misunderstood the question originally, because I thought we were just referencing the difference in value. I appreciate the handout. Thank you so much. I wouldn't say that if it is true that the humans have this value, I would then be agnostic on the non-humans.
Okay, because what I was asking is,
so I must have misunderstood your original question.
Because what I was asking is, like, you're agnostic in one case and you're not agnostic in the other. So since I'm not running like name the trait as if you're positively saying it's permissible to unalive animals for cheeseburgers, I'm just seeing if there's something that, if it were something true of the animal, that if it were true of the human, you would be agnostic to the human the same way you're agnostic to the animal. So that was what I was asking, and then you gave that trait. But maybe you thought you were answering something else and didn't mean to.
I thought I was answering something else. I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. What do you think your answer would be to that question?
I appreciate the Corky. Thank you so much. Of what would make it true amongst the human that doesn't exist of the non-human that would make me agnostic on the non-human?
What's true about the animal that, if it were true of the human, would make you say you're agnostic to whether or not the human should be unalive? It's permissible to unalive the human for a cheeseburger.
I don't know if I'm understanding the question.
It's almost the reverse. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Amdir, but sometimes, so like, there's something that is causing you to be agnostic about animals, right? Some set of traits. And so the idea is that, what would have to change about humans such that you would be agnostic about them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What would have to change about humans and such? I would be. I appreciate the Corgi. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, they would have to not be a part of a species in which is majority. I mean, not majority. It meets a threshold of rationality and not be sentient.
Yeah. Okay. So then you would answer it the same way you answered it earlier, right?
So then it would just end up reducing down to if they're non-human, then it would be morally justified. Okay, I see what your point is there.
Yeah, then if you give that answer, then if you say it's impermissible in the example I gave, then you would be contradicting yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So then, could you add like a standard of like you care about the context of like the family that existed for that? Like they had like this familial relationship, right, as a secondary standard, right? And you could say that the familial relationship with a particular set of humans, right, would have granted a greater level of value, right, in that type of way.
Yeah. Okay, so you could add to the conjunct. Well, this is the thing. If it's a conjunct, if it's like, A and B and C, then all three of the things need to be true. So even in the example I gave where two of the things wouldn't be true, adding one more wouldn't change your answer there. Now, maybe you would want to make it
I wasn't trying to
A or B or C.
No, I think what I was doing was I was adding a second or, not second or, a first or onto it. So there's the disjunct is the I appreciate the Corgi thing. I mean the hand arts is the what's it called? What the last trait I just said, right? And then the conjunct would be the first true traits of the human, and then the sentience. Does that make sense? Gotcha.
So you're doing either it has these familial relationships or sentience and the sort of belonging to a species with threshold rationality thing. Yeah. right? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So then I would just kind of modify the example, and it would be, you have the same thing. You have one of these humans who's severely mentally disabled, doesn't fall into the 90 or 95%. And
they're non-human. Remember, you find out they're not human. So they're not human.
Yeah, you find out they're non-human. I'm just using human as just a label or a name almost. It's, yeah, we can call it schmooman, whatever. They look, they grew up, they kind of look like a human, act like a human. They're not in this 90-95%. We do a DNA test, we find out
they grew up and act like a human, so they are rational.
No, they don't act like a human in every sense. I didn't say they're rational.
Like they grew up in our society? Is that
in fact, it's actually stipulated that they're not. They're not in the 90 or 95%. But what happens is once we found out through this DNA test they were just different enough genetically to never actually be human. And then we also, like, in a fluke accident, a tsunami hit the city where all their family lived in and killed them all. It was a real tragedy. And they don't have any familial or societal relationships.
They prior did.
They don't have anybody that cares about them now.
I mean, does that matter to me, though? Like, I care about the fact that there were people that cared about them in the past, even then.
I thought that if you want it to be the disjunct my understanding was they currently have people that care about them or family that cares about them. But
you could say past or present and future cares about.
So there have been, is, or will be people that care about them. Yeah, I mean, then the
past,
scenario,
present, and future. So, like, yeah.
Yeah, then the example is just going to be the same sort of scenario, but their mother left them in the hospital, didn't care about them, didn't want them. As soon as she had them, she found out they weren't in the 90 and 95% and left them there in the hospital.
And they never interacted with any other type of humans, right?
They interacted
some sort of
with
communicative
people,
faction.
Nobody cared about them. Nobody will care about them.
So they were able to interact with people and, like, engage in language?
No, they're not part of the nine. They're not rational. They're like.
So they never communicated with any other human. Appreciate the subscription. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. They never developed familial relationships. They
might communicate in the way that cows or pigs do. They might communicate through some behavior.
Like they communicate like a pig. Sure, I'd be agnostic.
They're going to communicate with body language.
Corgi, thank you so much.
To the same degree that certain animals would.
Sure, I might be agnostic in that circumstance. Yeah.
Okay, you'd be agnostic.
Like they're non-human. They're not sentient. They have no relations with any other types of humans that have ever existed, right? Or would.
I don't know what you mean by relations. Do you just mean that there's people that care about them?
So people that care about them and people that have interacted with them in some sort of communicative fashion.
Yeah. Also, they are sentient. Animals are sentient. So
yeah, you can say that they're sentient. Yeah. I would just be agnostic on it. Yeah.
But yeah, so relations, just to be clear, because maybe I'm not clear on this side of the disjunct. Relations is just so relations is interacting with in any capacity, having people that care about them. What is having relations with?
It could be through like communicative through like language or like a developed like relationship.
A developed relationship, a relevantly different one than what we have with animals. I mean, I think I have a relationship with my pet cat.
Yeah, and I think it would be wrong for someone to go and kill your pet cat.
You're not agnostic to that?
No, I'm not agnostic on that.
And if somebody like interacts with a pig, then you wouldn't be agnostic if that pig was killed in a factory farm either, or unalived in a factory farm.
Say that again?
If there was a pig that someone had like loved,
like a pet pig. Yeah, I don't think
it wasn't a pet. They just developed a connection with one that was in some factory farm. Maybe it was a worker or something.
If they developed like a relationship with it, sure, I would say it's wrong. Yeah,
it's wrong. Okay. So you just mean that they're either, so by relationship, you just mean either there's someone that cares about it, or what was the other one that engages in language?
That would just be like a typical. That's not like a necessary or anything.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand broadly
what it means to communicate. Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand broadly or generally what is sort of captured in relation. Because I think that we have, relationships with animals. And this is, or we at least can have relationships with animals, and I want to make sure that this is a relevant difference that's actually being identified. But yeah, I think we can just say the same thing. Like there's people that interact. So there's this person that's not in the 90 or 95%. People interact with this person. Okay. People, they don't really love it. They don't really like it. They interact with it in the same sense that workers interact with the animals that we eat, right? And it doesn't communicate through English language, but it communicates through body language or certain
like
things.
The same type of body language as like a pig or a cow. I would just be agnostic on it. Again, they're not human. You keep saying that they're human because I think it's going to get people miss. No, I know you're saying that, but like for you, you understand what I'm saying. But like the people in the chat, they hear human. Right? They don't know the prior context of what you're saying. So I'm just trying to clarify. But
they look like your average severely disabled human. They just have different DNA. It's not anything external that looks different about them in this case.
Amdir, your thing is your thing only sentience? Is that it for you, or no? Is there more stuff?
In terms of what? I'm confused.
When you went to eat an organism, whether it's permissible to eat an organism or not.
Well, it might depend whether or not I have an answer to this name the trait question. I don't think it has to be sentience because there's going to be different scenarios, right? So you might ask name the trait about one scenario and I might give one answer, and then you might ask name the trait about a different scenario and I might give a different answer.
Okay, so but generally speaking, if human, let's say there's a population of humans, and I don't know, let's say all Chicago became non-sentient, right? Would it be okay to eat them?
You said if all of Chicago became, so like they all became vegetables or something?
Yeah.
I think, I don't have an issue with I don't think that there's really a big deal with cannibalism other than like the ick or gross factor.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Do you think that that's like a reductio or?
I mean, I'm grossed out by cannibalism, even if it were non-sentient bodies.
I'm grossed out by it in the sense I'm grossed out by like eating literal shit. Like I'm grossed out by that, but I don't think I would tell people it's like morally wrong to do or something.
Yeah, like if I found out they did even that lab meat, if I found out it was human meat, I wouldn't get near it.
Like if it was lab grown human meat, you wouldn't.
Yeah, you guys are sidetracking, right? We're not giving Parker the reduction.
That's true. Yeah, I think this is sidetracking, but I agree with you. It's weird. I agree with you. It's gross. I don't think that you would think it's like immoral for somebody to eat lab grown human meat, though. No. Maybe you would, but yeah. Anyways, just to quickly finish.
I think what Danny was just saying though is that you also apply those aesthetic preferences for being human, like what typically people would, right? But so even if I were to hold to the aesthetics preference, which I wasn't there, right? It seems like you also, or not you, other people typically might hold to that.
I think Danny would agree that what he was saying there isn't directly relevant to like the line of questioning that we were on.
For you and Parker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there would be some. Yeah, I don't think it was directly like to Parker's set of preferences and values as to what is it called, trait equalization. Like, yeah, but I was wondering about yours, right? Like,
but wasn't it relevant to the aesthetic preferences we were talking about earlier, as it relates to like how it looked like a human, but it doesn't have any of these traits?
Amdir and I are grossed out by cannibalism, but we wouldn't like there'd be. Look, if it was Chicago, I think then the fact that people knew these, previous persons, like that would probably factor in. But bracketing a lot of that stuff, like if we were growing or raising farm humans with no minds, right? Like, I guess I'm politically on board, but I'm sort of
like pea zombies or something. I think it would be gross.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be politically against it, right? Is that the idea?
It might depend more specific on the scenario. Like there might be some auxiliary reason kind of separate from this, or some pragmatic reason to be against it, or to say, or to like advocate against it, or try to make laws against it that aren't moral reasons. But I'm not sure I have moral qualms with it. But Parker, I didn't disallow you from saying aesthetic values is one of your disjunct or conjunct. You didn't name that whenever we were.
Yeah, I went off of that, but it seemed like people were holding that, so I was just bringing it up because it was something I brought up prior that I thought Danny was addressing, but I could have been mistaken there. But to go back to what you were asking, right?
Let me try to finish verbalizing the reductio. I mean, the scenario is just, it looks like it looks like a human, probably some humans that you've seen. It's not genetically a human, okay? It's genetically different enough that it wouldn't be classified if they did a DNA test. And nobody interacts with it. Like, people interact with this person or schmerson or whatever term you want to use, the same way that they would interact with like farmed cow or pig. They'll take care of its basic needs. They're going to respond. They're going to communicate through body language and things like that. Nobody particularly cares for their well-being. Are you agnostic on whether or not it would be okay to turn them into a cheeseburger?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Okay.
Yeah, I would just be agnostic, because like there's so many qualities that would be different that I wouldn't even think we're referencing the same type of stuff. The only thing that we could bring up is the aesthetics point, which, I mean, I'm agnostic on, even if I hold to the aesthetics notion. But I mean, I think it describes how I feel about like scenarios about like dead bodies and stuff like that.
But
so
I do think most people, like, I think if you polled the audience, I do think most people would find this immoral. I don't think they would be agnostic towards it. I'm curious, Danny, do you share Parker's view here? Are you agnostic to that case, or?
Okay.
I'm not going to run you through the whole thought experiment. I'm just curious about this case, if you're agnostic towards it.
So what is it that is a population of humans that are not rational but sentient, right?
They're like the people who Parker already thinks are not rational, like whoever maybe the more severely disabled people are among us who don't fall into this 90 or 95% of the species that are rational.
Not people. Something that he just says like has similar like characteristics, like traits, looks like human, right? But it's not human, right? And it's also it's never had any relation with humans where it's developed familiar relationships, communicative, like even like people in like school walking around just like talking to people, like, you know, stuff like that, right? It's only just like the same way that, say, like a pig has interacted with, or not even a pig has interacted with a like a worker, not that's developed a relationship with them, but one that's just not even engaged with, really.
I said it's like one of these people. It's all you did is you took one of these people, one who maybe already was treated in a bad way, who was like already treated this way, and you just took a DNA test and it came back they were never human. That's it.
Then there would have been that type of interaction.
No. They were always treated like a farm animal before this DNA test.
And then
back.
you just say you didn't even do DNA. So you just had like some knowledge that you figured out that this particular individual was non-human.
Yeah.
Right? Would you be agnostic on it?
Yeah.
Was that clear, Danny? I think, yeah. We were just trying to clarify the question for you.
I thought you were. I zoned out. I'm sorry. You were talking to me. So wait.
Yeah.
It's the DNA comes out non-human, right?
Yeah.
It's not sentient, right? It is sentient, but not rational.
Well, it's sentient, yeah. It's sentient.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt, guys, for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Parker, I just want to say I appreciate you having me here. Look, I'm a vegan activist first and foremost. I appreciate the philosophy bros here. But the problem is, I think that you're missing a lot of net utility that could be had if we were to go vegan. I think you missed the disease part, the economics part. I think we're missing these bigger factors here. Yeah, we're sure we can stick to NTT here, but I mean, there's so many other reasons. I mean, avoiding the next pandemic, I mean, economic reasons, health reasons. There's so many valid reasons to go vegan that I think you just missed here today at the debate that I think you're just not giving any good enough attention to.
I don't think you really brought it up. So if you want me to respond to that, I already told you earlier that they would be treated similarly to how we treat.
The point is, I suggest I appreciate you being agnostic on these things, but I think that you should do more research and learn more about veganism in terms of what it entails. I think that would be beneficial for you and the people around you and the world around you. So I know you always talk about, being anti-bigotry and anti-homophobia, all these things, which is great. But I think veganism ties along with a lot of that stuff too. So that's all.
Sure, and I think that's why I put a lot of questioning into this, and I'm constantly questioning this. That's why I want to have conversations with this off live and stuff like that. I typically do that, and that's also why I don't come on here and argue against vegans.
Right, but
two backgrounds.
Why not on live?
again, because I haven't had a fully set up view on that. Similarly to like, I don't have conversations about Israel and Palestine every single day on live, right? Because I don't have a fully fledged out position where I'd be able to debate people in a proactive manner, right? I do have a position on it, but I don't have like a fully fledged out position where it would be even effective for me to be like on here debating it every day, right? I think that there are people who would be more suited to like debate those types of things.
Yeah, I think you're not taking it seriously in terms of like the potential implications of veganism.
What makes you think I'm not taking it seriously?
Well, from the debate you had last time with the vegan teacher, I think you completely put it in a wrong light.
Like what specifically? I don't know what you're talking about. Like I literally, I told you when I clarified this to you, Mike. Let me finish, Mike. I told you I clarified this to you. That live was not specifically about her being vegan. That live was about her saying it's okay to use blackface, her saying it's okay for white people to say the N-word, right?
Yeah,
her using the N-word in a video on YouTube in front of millions of people.
Yeah,
that's specific. Can I please finish, Mike? I let you finish, right? I that's what I'm specifically referencing, right? We had vegans on the panel. There were multiple vegans on the panel that were calling her out, right? The vegan stuff that was brought up, that's because she wanted to question me while coming up on the live. And I gave my responses, but again, that was not the main point of the vegan teacher in that scenario.
That's my point, right? My point is that you took advantage of the vegan teacher's persona as it's seen negatively on the internet. You took advantage of that, and you put 6 other people on the board with you that laughed at her, mocked her, called her names. I'm sure maybe the vegan teachers
called her racist for using the N-word.
Okay, that may be the case, but what you did was made a lot of people who actually are vegans really upset because you exploited her persona to make veganism look bad, right? You had people.
No, I clarified many times in that debate. If you actually watched it, that this is not specifically veganism. I actually literally specified that during the debate. You can ask the vegans that were on the panel. You can ask Carbon. You can ask Athena. They're both vegans that were on the panel that made this clear multiple times on the panel.
They were disingenuous too about the vegan teacher, but you exploited that too. Right?
Wait, they're vegans.
Look, there was a tornado.
Disingenuous saying that she's racist for saying the N-word?
Parker, there was a tornado, and you took advantage of the tornado and turned it into this bigger storm than it had to be. Why? Because somehow it seems like you have a grudge against veganism. That's what it seems to me. I
literally don't have a grudge against veganism. You're just misrepresenting what I did.
That's why I came here today to press you on this issue, which you said, I don't know, right? You're agnostic. Well, that's cute, but it doesn't actually help anybody around you to be agnostic and not debate these things, right? That's all I'm here for.
Okay, I don't have a fully fledged position on animal ethics.
Look, I appreciate you being here and having me on. I really do. But I think you got to pay more attention to these issues. Okay?
Oh, sure. You could say I need to pay more attention to these issues.
Thank you.
Wait, can we go over? Okay, can we go over the case? This time I'll pay attention.
I did. I was gonna, after this was done, I was gonna go back to asking Danny the question because I was interested in his answer.
Yeah, what was it? I was interested too.
Oh, he just.
Yeah, the scenario was okay. So,
they look like humans, right?
Well, this is the thing. So, there's the trait that one of the traits that Parker named is being part of a species that has a threshold of rationality. Now, whatever this threshold is, it's less than 100%. Parker says, yeah, there's something 5-10% of humans that don't meet this. So Andrew,
before you finish this, I just want to let you know, once we finish this little dialogue tree, I was going to get off for the night, but I just wanted to let you know before so people didn't think I was running or something. But yeah,
that's fine. I do want to talk about the calorie surplus stuff and maybe some of your other concerns at some point, but we can try to do it at a later date. That's totally fine.
Yeah, if you want to do that, or you can bring it up if you'd really like to. But we can always bring that up.
There's probably a lot more to talk about, but yeah, Danny. So take someone who already is just not among the population that's rational, and they're already there's somebody who's also treated really badly. So they're all already treated and interacted with by society and the people around them in similar ways that farm animals are treated. And then we take a DNA test and it comes back that actually this person was never a human. They're just different enough DNA to not be a human. Would you be agnostic about whether or not it'd be permissible to turn them into a cheeseburger?
I think I lean towards impermissible. I mean, I'm sort of I'm sort of, this is very similar to the Westworld robots, right? Like,
I didn't watch Westworld.
Because I'm against the abuse of Westworld robots. I don't even know if they're sentient or rational. Like,
Okay.
so I don't know. Like, if y'all don't know, Westworld's a great show, but like they create this park where they're machines, but they present as human. They can bleed and all that stuff. And people go into the park and grape them, kill them, and do all sorts of things, and then they repair them to go back out. And I thought that was disgusting. I didn't even have to know that they were sentient or not. So it seems like I lean towards impermissible here.
Yeah, I do too, and I have a feeling a lot of people would, but I don't have empirics on that. It just very it seems pretty obvious to me. But I don't need to touch on anything else right at this moment. If you have places to be and things to do.
Well, and I don't know if you caught me earlier. Sorry, Parker. I don't know if you caught me earlier. Like I'm totally inconsistent with my values, but I'm like, I optimally I'd be vegan, but I'm too lazy and I like the taste of meat. But I'm just not bothered enough to like change. I'm like basically a moral couch potato.
Maybe I send you some recipes or something.
Yeah, I've never been to a bad vegan restaurant. I've every bit of vegan cooked, like any kind of vegan dish I love. Like I probably should be vegan, but now the problem is that like my wife is Chinese and she loves her meat, like absolutely loves her meat. So like I talked to her about veganism, but she's like, no way. But maybe for health reasons. So maybe if we get like heart disease, we'll switch over. I don't know.
Do you think something that could be holding you more to it is the fact that you have people you care about that aren't vegan? Because this is something I've considered about myself. Like why, like a specific reason I could be like intuitively vegan, right? Could have been from like the fact that people around me, right, aren't vegan, right? Like especially people in my family, right? And it would be hard for me to justify, having these bad opinions about like these people I'd care about. So do you think that comes like in between you and becoming vegan, Danny?
Oh no, I'm just lazy and morally lazy. That's all it is. It's not. I disvalue pain, suffering, anything that even looks like it. Right? Like I just don't think that's optimal. I think and I bet Mike. I don't know anything about the practical studies, but it seems like I would bet that there's something to it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and this is something I wanted to question. I want to preface this as this is no argument against veganism, just something I heard recently. Again, clarify, no argument against veganism, just clarifying. I just want to know like what your perspective, Amdir, would be on it. How do you feel about like how most vegans would, end up eating meat, right, in their lives, like after the point in which they declare themselves vegan? Like they turn away from being vegan? Like is that something that you see as like
why did they do that? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, I could ask why, but I'm also just asking like, what are your thoughts about it? Like, I'm not really asking like a specific question, kind of like a vague, like, what are your thoughts about, like, do you think it's bad, right? Or do you think that there's something about veganism that leads to people doing this? Or
I mean, clearly, if I think that like killing animal or paying for animal unaliving is bad, then I'm gonna think somebody going back to supporting animal aliving is bad. Why they do it is a psychological question that I haven't investigated. I don't know if there's any other questions in there that you want answered. It's just a little vague for me.
Why is the emphasis on veganism rather than on vegetarianism? Like, what's the gap there, by the way?
What's the gap? Like, why?
Like how do you see vegetarians as like is it like someone that's trying to give up soda and they're just drinking like Diet Coke? Is that how you see, like, how do you see?
Do you mean like, why do vegans get so annoyed at vegetarian? Like,
I don't know. I'm asking because you never see like people that push. You see the pushes for veganism rather than vegetarianism, and I
think it's just that like a lot of the reasons people are vegan are like would just also apply to meat and eggs, just because the conditions are similar. But the way they get it is similar. Like they also, when they stop laying eggs or stop producing milk, they just unalive the animal.
Real question though, why I don't know why we care about fish. Like do you like that's an I feel nothing toward fish.
Yeah, low key, I'm kind of the same on that. I was kind of thinking about that recently. I can't think of a distinction.
I look at fish like robots, man. I don't look at pigs that way. I don't look at cows or poultry. I look at fish like robots.
Yeah, I definitely have more value that I place upon like pigs and cows and stuff like than I would place upon like fish.
I mean, I think that there's decent evidence that fish have experiences. I don't have it in front of me right now. I'd have to have a separate conversation where I kind of brought a little bit of this research along. But I mean, the things I care about things that have experiences, and I think that there's a fish probably have those from what I've seen. They certainly display things like pain behaviors. Those tend to court.
Yeah, it's hard. I agree. It's hard to detect, though. It is hard to I guess, relate to. It's hard to relate to a fish. It's easier to relate to a cow, I think. But I guess before we go, I'm keeping Parker. And I lost my train of thought, but it had to do with fish. Anyways, thanks for coming on, Amdir. I'll have to message you. Oh, guys, follow Amdir. He's like one of the smartest people I know. So I go to him when I have questions. So.
Thanks, Danny. All right. Thanks for bringing me up, Parker. Thanks, Danny. Talk to you guys later.
Of course. Good seeing you, Amdir.
Yep. See ya. Bye.
All right, y'all. I am going to get off for tonight. I do appreciate everyone coming on tonight. It was a longer day today. I do actually have a lot of that recorded. I have 2 separate clips, so it probably will be like a part 1 and part 2 if people do want to see it and whatnot. I do appreciate everyone who did come on today. It was a different type of debate. I'm not typical to do these types of debates. Again, I don't really see much utility in debating vegans, right? I would see way more utility in like debating veganism if I like was a vegan, I feel like. But like, yeah, maybe someday I'll be vegan. I appreciate the handouts. Thank you so much. And whatnot. But yeah, no, I appreciate every single one of you. Tomorrow I will be on probably around, what day is it tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thursday. Tomorrow I'll be on like 12 like noon Pacific Standard